Well, hello, it's Pastor Stuart again, ready to talk about what we've been studying in the book of Revelation. And at the end of this video, I've got an exciting announcement for you that I think you'll like. So, first thing I want to talk about is just to kind of remind ourselves about the book of Revelation, particularly because there's this tendency to get on the web, read the newspaper, listen to things online or on TV, and kind of then pick up the book of Revelation and say, oh, this is that. And so we talked about the fact that the problem with reading the book of Revelation in the eyes of what's going on in today's events. And we know there's lots of things going on that seem very cataclysmic, very serious things, unprecedented restrictions we've had in our culture or society. I never thought I'd live in a time when there'd be a state that would close its borders and say, if you're coming from this other state, you can't come into our state. So there's really some amazing things going on right now. And we see we've read in Revelation about famine and about all kinds of destruction and God's judgment. But really, we got to kind of take a step back and remember this: that when we read in Revelation with the kind of the eyes of today's news, the problem is that kind of diminishes the universal and timeless nature of God's truth. I mean, these great symbols that we're looking at and studying in the book of Revelation were aimed at early Christian first century ears, not at 21st century ears like you and I. And so we can try to figure out what they're saying to someone in the first century, and that will help us understand what they're saying today. And the second reason why we don't want to kind of read Revelation with the eyes of the news and current events is because then we're kind of tempted to forget that God has acted in all past history of the church, and he continues to act in all times. We have no monopoly on God's attention. The prophecies of Revelation meant as much in the first century as they did to ancient church fathers like Augustine, people like Luther and John Wesley. They meant as much to them as they mean to us today. And so as we look at it and we're going to take seriously what the book of Revelation has to say, we remember it has to make good sense to someone in the first century. And then based on what that good sense is, then we can say, okay, what are we being called in our generation to understand what God's saying? And what is God asking us to do to obey what he's saying? And so Revelation, we said, is not a secret code about the timing of the end of the world, but it's giving a heavenly perspective through these symbolic visions that show us how history's final outcome will unfold. And so we've said Revelation unveils, that's what Revelation means, to unveil. Revelation unveils both Jesus and his future victory. Because one of the things Revelation is definitely trying to say to us is, who is Jesus? He's God. He's fully God. And we've seen how Revelation in chapters 1 and 2 takes passages that in the Old Testament, those kinds of phrases and words are ascribed to God the Father, the one true God. And here in the New Testament, here in Revelation, they're being ascribed to Jesus. And so really, if we kind of bring this all together, what have we learned so far? Everything we could learn kind of falls under one of these two things. There's two major themes that we're seeing. And the first theme is that Jesus will one day return in power, in glory, to triumph over all evil and sin. As we think about the terrible events that are going on today, literally all around the world, boy, we get discouraged and we see the things that are going on, and people are losing loved ones. I just recently learned that a friend of mine that I've been a pastor on staff with a few years back, that his father, who was also a pastor at that church, just passed away yesterday from the coronavirus. So there's real things going on here, but we've got to remember that one day all this evil and sin will be done away with, that Jesus is going to come and he's going to triumph over that. And we read in Revelation chapter 1, verse 5, that then all will know that he is the ruler of the kings of the earth. And we saw in Revelation 1:7, John said, look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn because of him. And they're going to mourn because they've not lived righteously. They've not lived according to what we understand since having received the gospel. And so they're going to mourn, but we're going to triumph. We're going to be in celebration, because all the pain and sickness and evil that there is in this world is going to be done away with when he returns. And that's the first thing. And the second thing we read here in Revelation, though, is that only believers who overcome will inherit this kingdom that God's going to bring to us. And so we saw that even in the first century, the Satan, as the enemy of God's people, was always trying to work. He was working through the Roman emperors, trying to draw people away from God. And so one of the messages of the book, we'll see this as we get into chapter 14 fairly soon. But I think this is a phrase, even if we think about the seven churches and the warnings to them, but in Revelation 14, verse 12, it says, "This calls for patient endurance on the part of the saints who obey God's commandments and remain faithful to Jesus." And I don't know about you, but I know in this time of kind of enforced um, separation, we're not able to go out and do our normal lives and go to work perhaps the same, or shopping. The restaurants are closed. There's so much that's different. Maybe things that we've never experienced before. It's really caused me to kind of think and say, wow, God, I mean, you're speaking all the time. Am I listening? Am I obeying? What is it you're asking me to fall in line with? And maybe I've got maybe not more time in some ways, maybe, but I definitely got an opportunity to assess my life and say, wow, how is my life lining up to things I know that God's spoken to me? And so believers are to stand firm, and those who stand firm despite opposition, persecution, suffering, and even the kinds of things we're experiencing now, um, that those who stand firm to the end will receive the reward that the Lord has for them. So the real revelation lesson that we're seeing here is that just like any other generation of believers, we can know God is in control. I was reading the other day, we were thinking about, well, what's the church got to say in the midst of the coronavirus? And I was reading how back right after World War I, when the influenza was going on, Spanish influenza, which killed millions of people around the world and tens of thousands of people in America, that the churches had to close then because people couldn't get together for the same reasons we can't get together now. And yet the church didn't, in a sense, feel like they were being diminished or losing their witness. They didn't have the ability to get together by Facebook or YouTube or Zoom or all these other ways we can by email and connect. They were truly kind of separated, but yet they encouraged each other and wrote notes to each other and maybe spoke to each other through a door and things like that. But they were intent encouraging and saying, listen, this is a time when things are dark. It's time for our light to shine. And they thought of ways that their light could shine, the way they could serve and try to help keep people from getting sick and how they could help those who were sick. And so I just want to encourage you in that same way that we can take the reality that we've learned in Revelation of who God is and how powerful he is, so clear. And we can apply that and say, okay, God, you can use me, you can use us in this culture. And then certainly when these times of kind of quarantine and separation and distancing are over, when we go back to work, we go back to school, we go back to some normal parts of life and get together with other people, what are we going to say to them? We're going to process through what we just all went through. How can we speak to the goodness of God and this time he's given us between his first coming and his second coming? This time where we can tell others the good news and tell people, listen, God's there, and sin and evil one day are going to be done away with. And he sent his son to make a way for you and I to have a relationship with him forever together in heaven. So just an encouragement to you. Well, that's kind of the overview of what we've learned so far. What I'd like to do, kind of the special announcement I wanted to share with you, is that I've decided, because it seems like the social distancing is going to go on for several more weeks, that starting this Thursday night at 7 o'clock, if you come to YouTube, to this channel, CLC Discipleship Online, where you're watching this video, we're going to be doing a live stream. So what that means is if you've been part of the class and you want to continue with us, that if you come at 7 o'clock, we're going to go like 7 to 8 o'clock, and come online, you'll be able to chat. There'll be a chat function. I'll be able to kind of see the chat, things that you're saying, maybe questions you may have, and I'll be teaching. So we're going to kind of pick up where we left off. We've started lesson 6. So we're going to get right back into that and go into lesson 6 and to continue on. We've talked about the 7 seals. We've kind of gotten into the bowls and the trumpets. So I'll kind of start there and kind of remind us where we've been and then proceed on. We need to talk about the 2 witnesses and who they are. We've talked about the potential of rebuilding the temple and what that would mean in Jerusalem. So 7 o'clock on Thursday night, join me on the CLC Discipleship Online channel, not the usual CLC channel, but this Discipleship Online channel. And we'll be doing a live stream. So I hope to see you there. Look forward to continuing our study of Revelation so we can get through to the good stuff at the end as well. So God bless you. I'm praying for you that you'll stay strong, stay healthy, be wise and careful in all that you're doing. And I look forward to seeing you in person, but look forward to seeing you Thursday night. So God bless. We'll see you then. Take care.